The scorched earth policy was a military strategy employed by colonial powers in Africa, in which they intentionally destroyed crops, confiscated livestock, and burned homes and villages of indigenous populations as a means of suppressing resistance and undermining their ability to sustain themselves. This policy aimed to weaken the local population and deprive them of resources, thereby making it more difficult for them to resist colonial rule. Some of the indigenous peoples who were affected by the scorched earth policy included the following African groups, but are not limited to them: 1. The Xhosa people of South Africa by British invaders. 2. The Herero and Nama people of Namibia by German invaders. 3. The Congolese people by Belgian invaders. 4. The Maji people of Tanzania by German invaders. One of the most notable examples of the scorched earth policy against the Xhosa people of South Africa was the expulsion of the Xhosa people from the Zoerveld in 1812 during the Frontier Wars. The British commander, Lieutenant Colonel John Graham, ordered his troops to burn Xhosa crops and villages and to drive off the Xhosa people. This resulted in the deaths of an estimated 20,000 Xhosa people. The Herero and Nama genocide was a series of massacres and forced marches carried out by German colonial forces in Namibia between 1904 and 1908. The genocide was sparked by the resistance of the Herero and Nama peoples to German rule. The Herero and Nama were pastoralists who opposed German demands for forced labor, taxation, and the expropriation of their land. In response, the German commander, Lothar von Trotha, ordered his troops to sweep the country clean of the Herero and Nama. The Germans used scorched earth tactics, executing or driving off Herero and Nama people, destroying their crops and livestock, and imprisoning them in concentration camps where many died from disease and starvation. The Herero and Nama genocide resulted in the deaths of an estimated 60,000 to 100,000 people. The Rubber Terror was a period of brutal exploitation and violence in the Congo Free State, now the Democratic Republic of the Congo, from 1885 to 1908. The Rubber Terror was carried out by the Belgian colonial authorities, who forced the Congolese people to harvest rubber under harsh and inhumane conditions. Those who refused to work were often killed or mutilated. The Rubber Terror resulted in the deaths of an estimated 10 million to 15 million Congolese people and is considered one of the worst examples of colonial exploitation in history. The Maji Rebellion was a widespread uprising against German colonial rule in Tanzania in 1905. The rebellion was sparked by German demands for forced labor and taxes, as well as the introduction of a new system of taxation that was seen as exploitative. The rebels, who were mostly farmers and laborers, were armed with spears, bows and arrows, and homemade guns. They used guerrilla tactics to fight the Germans and also destroyed crops and livestock in an attempt to starve the Germans out. The Germans responded to the rebellion with brutal force. They used scorched earth tactics, burning villages and crops, and killing or imprisoning anyone suspected of supporting the rebels. The rebellion was eventually crushed, but it resulted in the deaths of an estimated 100,000 to 300,000 people. The scorched earth policy was a brutal and inhumane tactic that caused widespread death and destruction in Africa. It is a reminder of the brutality of colonialism and the devastating impact it had on African people. It is a stain on the history of Africa and the colonial powers that used this tactic. Thank you for your support. Don't forget to check out our relaxing ASMR videos on YouTube.